Get some! All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys. Fascinating day. Lots of ruckus in the Capitol, and I like it. Jamal Bowman, who I'm now going to start calling the principal. The principal's walking the hallways and regulating.
You're really great with branding. Who doesn't want to be called the principal?
Well, first of all, he was a principal. So
I know, but still.
No, but the principal regulates, okay? And he has to in Washington because there's a bunch of children.
A ton of children.
Knew you'd like that. Yeah. Okay, now we're warming up to the principal. Anyway, that's coming up in a little bit. DeSantis gets clowned by a mouse. Trump jumps on it, and he jumps eating it. So lots of news, tons of fun in today's show, including in the bonus episode where you guys are gonna see this video that you're gonna love, okay? Democracy Manifest. All right.
Well, speaking of children, we begin with a few. Let's do it.
Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries went on TV this morning to reject the GOP plan to add work requirements to some welfare programs, calling that a non-starter. So the president left for Asia with a message of reassurance that he won't do anything of consequence.
President Joe Biden is likely to concede to Republicans on the debt ceiling deal, even though he doesn't have to. Biden is so pathetic that House GOP is openly mocking him. And if you don't believe me, you're about to see it. Let's watch.
But look at how House Republicans received that message.
But he also said on work requirements, he'd accept not anything of any consequence. Where does that?
Loser. I don't understand anything that has consequence. This is a senator who voted for work requirements.
This is a senator who voted for work requirements. And honestly, that is the most painful part of watching that video, because not only is it incredibly embarrassing to have a weak president who already had capitulated to Republican demands back in 2011, it appears that he is poised to do so yet again. And Cenk, I mean, it's incredible how many of your predictions and my predictions tend to come to fruition.
Yeah.
So why don't you open up the conversation to that?
Yeah. So look, I got this one right, but and we often do, and that's not bragging. I know it sounds like bragging.
No, we should definitely brag.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
But guys, you get it right too, and I see it in your comments because we figured out something super simple. It's always the money. Money always wins. The rest of it is just theater. It's just theater. So it's not at all complicated. You're all gonna get the predictions right too, okay? Unfortunately, people who buy into the theater don't get it right. Oh my God, Joe Biden is gonna fight the Republicans. No, of course not, that's ridiculous. He's gonna give them whatever they want on it because both of their donors agree. They wanna make sure that you guys don't get any help and they get all of the money, not just a little of the money, okay? So, and then he said he wasn't gonna negotiate on the debt ceiling. We told you he would. Of course he's negotiating on the debt ceiling because it's not just that Biden is weak, and he is, and I'll get to that in a second. But it's mainly that he's complicit. Like he wanted to cut spending, he wanted an excuse to cut spending, and so they invented the debt ceiling thing, which since Trump didn't do it at all, like there was no negotiating debt ceiling under Trump, he should have just just flicked it off his shoulder and be done with it. But he wants to cut it. He voted for cutting spending throughout his entire career. He's a conservative, a Democrat, but really on economic issues, totally Republican. And then they said, oh, he is not gonna do the work requirements. So we told you he's gonna do the work requirements. Of course he's gonna do it, because he wants to do it. Understand that, but he's also weak. Because that when they laugh in his face, and one of the Republican congressmen there said, loser.
Oh God.
Because they made him accept the work requirements, and then they're rubbing it in his face.
That's right.
And do you think that Biden's gonna man up and fight back? There's a 0% chance of that. He's gonna give them exactly what he wants because that's who he is.
Well, if you want to see week for yourself, here's the moment from President Joe Biden's press conference that reporters were reacting to and asking about. Let's take a look.
I'm not going to accept any work requirements that's going to impact on medical health needs of people. I'm not going to accept any work requirements that go much beyond what is already. Well, I voted years ago for the work requirements that exist, but it's possible there could be a few others, but not anything of any consequence.
And here is more of McCarthy and his fellow Republicans reacting to that statement.
If he doesn't want to have something that has consequences, he wants to borrow more money from China to pay an able-bodied person who has no dependents, not even to look for a job, not even go to school for 20 hours.
And now we're seeing some congressional Democrats put out signals that they won't just swallow whatever Biden agrees to. Congressman Ro Khanna saying he'll consider whatever the president proposes, but he'll vote how he sees fit. And he's trying to redirect potential cuts away from welfare to defense, saying that is where bigger savings could be achieved.
And that's true. I mean, if they're genuinely concerned about the bloated budget and if they want to cut spending, the first place they should look is the military, where we are now spending more than $800 billion a year. And there is so much waste in the Pentagon that they can't even pass a simple audit. They have failed every single audit that has happened over the last several years. And one other thing I want to just quickly mention is the work requirements have not worked. And we have specific examples. I have some data that I'm gonna get to in just a moment. But before we get to that, and it's really important for you all to know how that works out and how it actually ends up costing the government more money, I do wanna just kind of talk about fairly recent history, 2011, when Biden struck a deal as vice president under the Obama administration with Republicans on something known as the Budget Control Act, okay? The Budget Control Act was something that Republicans demanded at the time. They were holding the debt ceiling hostage just as they are right now. And they're like, we want to cut funding, right? So that bill passed. And what it did is it led to austerity on major social spending programs for 10 years straight. And that was a huge consequence for the American people.
Yeah, Biden's been giving things away to Republicans his entire career. He also struck a deal in the Obama administration where he made tax cuts for the rich permanent. Even George W. Bush couldn't do that, but he gave that to Mitch McConnell as a gift because Biden is a Republican on economic issues. They all serve their donors, but no one in media will tell you that. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the receipts in a little bit of, so you know that we're not kidding when we say, yeah, we got this right? And I'll tell you what whether Ro Khanna and Hakeem Jeffries are being honest or not. But I want to say one more thing about how you guys can see for yourself when they're lying and what they're actually going to do, okay? So when the minute Biden says, well, we'll have to make sure that to take care of the medical needs of people when talking about work requirements, the translation to that is I'm going to give in on work requirements and I'm going to make a tiny little exception for people with medical disabilities or something along those lines so that I could save face and pretend that I had a real negotiation with them when I'm actually giving them 99% of what they want. Right. And you'll see this over and over again. And so back when Obama was going through Obamacare, progressives pushed him to do the public option. It was incredibly popular, but he didn't want to do it because his donors told him under no circumstance are you allowed to do that. And so he said, we'd like to do the public option. It's going to be difficult, of course. And I said, look, that means they're definitely not doing it. And everyone in media was like, you're again outrageous. How dare you say that? He said he's going to try. No, when a Democrat says they're going to try, that means, ironically, they are not going to try. Biden did the same exact thing with $15 minimum wage. Oh, it's gonna be difficult, but I guess we'll give it a shot. That's a signal to the Republicans, I'm ready to concede on that, okay? So, but every reporter knows this. How come they don't tell you? It drives me nuts, right? So now we go to Ro Khanna and Hakeem Jeffries. So, and by the way, when I say receipts on we were right, in this case it might be literal since I Looks like I might win money.
Yeah, you are gonna win money. Do you wanna go to that video?
Okay, let's go to that first and then I'll come back to it. So look, this is me and Emma, we're just having fun, okay? And Emma thought that that they might do the deal without work requirements because everyone on the Democratic side claims that they will not accept work requirements. Hakeem Jeffries was super clear, and now the top Democrat in the House, it's a non-starter. So I don't blame Emma. But I thought, hey, you should never trust Democratic leadership. They'll never do what they're gonna say, and for all the reasons that I explained. So it is fun little bit earlier in the week. So I said very confidently that they would have work requirements in the negotiations on the debt ceiling. You say no.
Yeah.
$100?
$100. We're doing
all right,
it.
Here we go.
There we go.
Okay, I love these bets.
I like gambling, obviously, if anyone watches my show.
She does, and she's a great sport about it, and I'm looking forward to the $100. It's not over, by the way. Emma could still be right. Now, for example, if Hakeem Jeffries actually means a word of what he says, he could just turn around to Biden and said, I think you misunderstood me. I said it's a non-starter, okay?
Yeah.
And he's the top Democrat in the House, but he's a liar. He's definitely not gonna fight Biden, and they're definitely gonna put in the work requirements, and Hakeem Jeffries isn't gonna do a goddamn thing about it.
So one other thing that I wanted to just bring up, because I thought it was an interesting proposal. I just doubt that Biden is going to take Democrats' advice on this. But today, several Democratic senators, progressive senators, held a press conference led by Senator Bernie Sanders. And what he is arguing, along with 11 total Democratic senators who have signed this letter to Biden, is that he should invoke the 14th Amendment in order to raise the debt ceiling and just basically not allow the Republican Party to hold the debt ceiling hostage. So it's section 4 of the 14th Amendment, and it talks about, the United States debt, the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion shall not be questioned.
Yeah, look, guys, it's a no-brainer. If I was advising the president, I'd tell him, don't do the 14th Amendment right away. I would say first beat the living crap out of the Republicans for
Agreed.
this. I say a bunch of deadbeats don't want to pay their debt. Look, we all as Americans believe in personal responsibility. We accrued this debt together, okay? And now they say, well, I want to be a deadbeat. I want to be a loser and not pay our debts, right? And I want to crash the entire global economy. And I want to make the working class pay for it because they're the ones that are going to lose their jobs. Go ahead, Republicans, say it. Say it 1,000 times. I do a press conference every single day. And I bash the living crap out of them politically and rhetorically, which Biden would never do because he loves Republicans. Instead, he's giving them a giant gift. And then I would use the 14th Amendment. Because that's what a strong person does, that's what an honest person does. But Biden isn't either one of those. And by the way, just to complete the thought on Ro Khanna is a good, earnest man, and I like his proposal of taking it from defense instead. Of course it has a 0% chance. Both the corporate Republicans and the corporate Democrats would never touch the defense budget or raising taxes for the rich, because they serve the rich and they serve defense contractors. So that's why it's a good policy by Ro Khanna, but it has no chance of success because almost all of his colleagues are totally corrupt and agree with the Republicans.
Okay, now I want to just quickly tell you why work requirements is incredibly, it's incredibly dumb if the genuine goal by these Republicans is to cut spending. It actually ends up becoming far more expensive and does not do much in encouraging people to work, because the majority of people who, for instance, in the case of Arkansas, which tried this experiment, they tried to have work requirements in regard to Medicaid recipients in the state. And it was such a disaster that the program didn't even last 2 years. It was struck down by a judge before the 2 years were up. The other thing I want to just quickly mention is we don't know exactly what the work requirements are going to be tied to. There are some reports indicating that Republicans want the work requirements tied to SNAP benefits. Other reports say that it could have to do with Medicaid. We don't know yet. And what's really interesting is that we haven't really seen any proposal from the Republican Party, just this effort to push for austerity. And remember, this is the same party that provided cover for Donald Trump, who actually blew up our budget and increased the deficit to the tune of $8 trillion. And of course, he's the one who passed the tax cuts for the rich to the tune of $2 trillion over a decade. So with that said, let's go to Arkansas and see how their little experiment went. Didn't go well. So this was research done. It's really, really good research. The title of it, well, look up Summers et al. And you'll find the research. It's open for everyone to read. But in June of 2018, Arkansas became the first state to implement work requirements in Medicaid, requiring adults ages 30 to 49 to work 20 hours a week, participate in community engagement activities, or qualify for an exemption to maintain coverage. Now, by April of 2019, a federal judge put the policy on hold, and then later it was struck down. So didn't work out so well. Work requirements did not increase employment over 18 months of follow-up. And over 95% of Arkansas beneficiaries in our survey already met the state's Medicaid work requirements or should have been eligible for an exemption. This suggests that barriers to reporting data to the state rather than not meeting the requirements themselves was the main cause for coverage losses in 2018. So they only had one avenue in which people could report their employment, and it was through the internet. And like, not everyone has a computer. There might be some older Medicaid recipients who aren't as savvy with technology. So that was a huge barrier. And in the end, it ended up costing the state more money because remember, you have to have an apparatus in place in order to do the reporting, have them report their employment in order to enforce the policy. So it ended up costing the state money. Any consideration of work requirements in Medicaid should consider administrative costs as well. Implementation of this policy cost an estimated $26.1 million, with 17% of the cost paid for by the state and 84% paid for by the federal government.
Yeah, so look, Republicans wanna paint the average man as a bum. And if you remember, Mitt Romney said the 47% of the country never wants to work. They're just the takers. Paul Ryan would say that all the time. This is not a Trump thing. This is a Republican Party thing, and it's been here for decades. Why? Because they don't want any money spent on the average American. They want all the money to go to the tax cuts for the rich. So for example, over this debt ceiling fight, people suggested, hey, why don't we take it back some of the Trump tax cuts, and then we could pay for it easily, no problem, right? They go, oh, no. So the richest people in the world should never be challenged. We should never take a dime from them. But if you're poor and you need help, you need a hand up for a second, Republicans are here to call you bums. None of the facts ever back them up. They know that. They don't care about the facts. It's propaganda meant to help their rich donors.
All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, we'll tell you about how Nancy Pelosi is engaging in elder abuse in order to be a kingmaker.
Back on TUAT, I got to read one member comment here. Mickey C. the Silver Dragon said, the Republicans all bursting out in laughter really pissed me off, and not at the Republicans.
Yep, I totally agree.
You couldn't agree more, that's why I read it. You know, Mickey always comments with great comments. We appreciate her and we appreciate all our members, but that really nailed it, because this is visceral. When they started laughing at Biden, we all know that Biden's not gonna fight back. And it really angered me that we have so-called representatives on our so-called side who are at best the weakest people in America. Give me one strong actual Democrat and we'll change the whole country.
All right, let's move on to yet another story where Cenk's predictions proved to be correct. So, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is likely engaging in elder abuse so she can play kingmaker in the Senate, and that's according to insiders who spoke to Politico. Now, the story revolves around Senator Dianne Feinstein, who we all know needs to retire immediately. She returned to the Senate after being absent for 2.5 months with a really bad shingles condition. When she was speaking to reporters recently and they asked about her time away, she seemed to have forgotten that she was away and denied it, said that she was in the Senate working the entire time. And of course, she has missed some pretty critical votes to confirm judges. Now, why hasn't the Democratic senator retired? She is not doing well. Well, Politico reports that there was a clue on the day that she returned to the Senate because she was accompanied by a woman named Corinne Prada. And if you're wondering who she is, she's actually the oldest daughter of Nancy Pelosi's. Now, when Feinstein returned to the Senate last week, she was accompanied by Prada. Apparently, Prada has been basically living with Feinstein and playing a big role in the senator's life ever since her husband passed away. And not only did she escort Feinstein around Capitol Hill last week, she was again at her side yesterday, helping aides surround the senator in Capitol Hill as reporters were trying to ask her questions. Now, apparently, Pelosi is acutely aware of just how bad Feinstein's condition is. But when Congressman Ro Khanna, and Dean Phillips, by the way, called on her to retire because clearly she's experiencing significant mental decline and now you can see physical decline as well, Nancy Pelosi responded with the statement, quote, "I've never seen them go after a man who was sick in the Senate." Yeah, but we don't have, as far as I know, there's no male in the Senate right now who is unable to perform their duties due to permanent mental decline, due to honestly old age, right? Well, it turns out that Nancy Pelosi has a stake in the game. So let's talk about that a little bit. Politico writes this: Pelosi has endorsed Representative Adam Schiff, her longtime protege and former handpicked House Intelligence Committee chair, to succeed Feinstein after her 6th and final term ends next year. Schiff is a household name in California and already has a $15 million campaign cash advantage over his nearest competitor. And so I want to go to a video featuring our very own Cenk Uygur, where he shares a bit of a prediction with us.
Why don't the Democrats replace her? It's easy. Governor Newsom would do it. He's a Democrat. It's the easiest thing in the world because they don't want a progressive in there, and they're worried that anyone, by definition, will be more progressive than Dianne Feinstein because both her, when she was of sound mind, and apparently her chief of staff, who's now the current senator, are both deeply conservative. So they're like, oh, we love that. So they just want to keep a corporate Democrat in there. And by the way, what did the Democrats ever do anyway? Nothing. So they're like, what do we need her for? We don't do anything. So the judicial nominations, some people are a little upset about. So let's pretend that we care about that, but not actually do anything, which is, of course, the route that they have settled on.
All right, so keep those words in your mind as I give you some more reporting from Politico. But if Feinstein were to bow to pressure and retire early, Adam Schiff's advantage would disappear. Governor Gavin Newsom has pledged to appoint a black woman to serve out her term, and one of Schiff's declared opponents, Representative Barbara Lee, would fit the bill. If Dianne Feinstein, they call her Di-Fi, resigns right now, there is an enormous probability that Barbara Lee gets appointed. Thus, it makes it harder for Schiff. One Pelosi family confidant said, adding that the relationship between Pelosi, her daughter, and the senator is being kept under wraps and very, very closely held. With that said, one more video from Cenk Uygur.
The holdup is that Gavin Newsom earlier promised, when he thought he didn't have to do it, that he would appoint a black woman. Well, who's the most logical black woman? Barbara Lee. Well, the problem is she's a progressive, and they would rather have all judicial appointments blocked than put a progressive into that seat. So Newsom right now is building a list of random African-American females in California in order to not give it to Barbara Lee.
I believe we have a hashtag for this, Cenk Uygur. It's called #Cenk was right.
Well, I appreciate it, Anna. As I say every time when we get these right, guys, politics is not that hard to figure out. The establishment never wants a progressive. They'll do anything to avoid it. On other occasions, I also mentioned it's because the establishment favors Adam Schiff. And we talked about it in the context of that race, Adam Schiff versus Katie Porter and Adam Schiff versus Barbara Lee, specifically in regards to appointing Barbara Lee, the logical choice here. And by the way, I don't know who I would vote for between Barbara Lee and Katie Porter. But I do know Gavin Newsom definitely said he was gonna appoint a black woman. Barbara Lee is definitely the most qualified. There's no question about it. And I know that Gavin Newsom, every Democratic leader in California, and Nancy Pelosi all want Adam Schiff. Why do they all want Adam Schiff? Because he's the most corrupt. He has taken the most corporate donations, will do whatever corporations tell him to do, and Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi agree with that 100%. And they don't want this guy to lose. And they're like, damn it, we've got this black woman here, we don't want to be the senator, but we can't say that publicly because we love playing identity politics.
Right.
And ironically, Pelosi pulls the female card.
Yes.
On this very issue.
That's what they do. Guys, the Democratic Party weaponizes identity all the time for their political gain. That is it. That is it. You think Nancy Pelosi cares about women? Come on.
Not at all. Come on, guys. Come on. Look, that's some classic mainstream media stuff where they, a champion of women. No, you got to show it in the bills. I don't care what your theater is. I don't care how you rip up papers or what kind of cloth you wear and all this nonsense.
The theater, the posturing.
Yeah, and so the minute that, by the way, we've now got the question. There's one answer I didn't know, which was, well, who's the actual senator from California? I've asked that on the show about half a dozen times now, because that one, I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to know? That one's not easy to predict. I don't know if it's the chief of staff. I don't know if it's the communications director. It turns out it's none of them. It's Nancy Pelosi.
I know, guys, it's so sick. It's so sick. Like, I want you to really absorb what this means, okay? Dianne Feinstein is not in a good condition, both physically and mentally, okay? The fact that she didn't even remember that she had been out for 2.5 months, they're exploiting her, they are using her. What Nancy Pelosi is doing is absolutely disgusting. It is disgusting. First of all, it's undemocratic, it's just gross. And so let's just go to some new reporting from the New York Times that actually shed some additional light on how poor Dianne Feinstein's health is right now. It's even worse than we knew. So they report, this came out today. The shingles spread to her face and neck, causing vision and balance impairments and facial paralysis known as Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. The virus also brought on a previously unreported case of encephalitis, a rare but potentially debilitating complication of shingles, according to 2 people familiar with the senator's diagnosis who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe it. I'm not done, there's more. Okay, let's go to the next graphic. Characterized by swelling of the brain.
Come on.
Post-shingles encephalitis can leave patients with lasting memory or language problems, sleep disorders, bouts of confusion, mood disorders, which honestly explains a lot, headaches and difficulties walking. Older patients tend to have the most trouble recovering. And even before this latest illness, as we all know, Feinstein had already suffered substantial memory issues that had raised questions about her mental capacity. Guys, what Nancy Pelosi is doing right now is disgusting and sick.
So, of course, no one in mainstream media will tell you that because that's obviously true.
But they're cowards and they like to provide cover for Pelosi.
Right, that would make the powerful uncomfortable.
Good, be uncomfortable.
And oh my God, a journalist, you can't make the powerful uncomfortable. What if they don't give you access? Why don't you go kiss their ass again? Okay, so listen, I am 100% against Republicans, but our job is to be honest, unlike apparently anyone else in media. And so in this case, I'm not having a conversation about Dianne Feinstein's mental health. It's over. She comes back from being out for all those months and she says, what, I wasn't out? It's over. I don't know or care if it's dementia or Alzheimer's or any of the above. She clearly has literally no idea what's going on. So this is beyond sick. It is incredibly deceptive. I don't find it to be like savvy politics that Nancy Pelosi installed her daughter as the illegitimate senator from California. No, I didn't vote for Nancy Pelosi's daughter. And guys, I'm also not having this conversation. Oh, the person next to Dianne Feinstein is always Nancy Pelosi's daughter. And Nancy Pelosi's daughter is the one who is telling you what Feinstein thinks.
No, it's even sicker than that.
No, she's the senator. Pelosi stole the seat.
No, guys, but there's also another element to the story in that New York Times piece that's genuinely concerning to me, because they report that 2 different family members tried to visit the senator and they were told that she didn't want to see anybody.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? No. If you're a family member of Dianne Feinstein, please go help your family member.
Yes.
And do not listen to sick politicians telling you can't visit your family member because they'd like to take further advantage of her. Because Nancy Pelosi made a promise to Adam Schiff that, don't worry, Adam, okay, all of us corrupt Democrats will stick together and we'll defeat that black woman, Barbara Lee, and the other woman, Katie Porter. Oh, by the way, I'm for women's rights. Get out of here, man. Deeply, deeply corrupt.
All right, let's move on to more chaos in Congress, starting with this.
Resign! Resign! Get him out! Save yourself! Have some dignity! Have some dignity! There you go, come on, man! You gotta go!
Alexandra,
You gotta go!
how's that dress?
The party! Republicans, kick him out!
Democratic Representatives Jamal Bowman and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez were heckling freshman Republican George Santos and demanding that he resign. Now, Santos threw a jab about AOC's Met Gala dress and then ran away. But nonetheless, Santos was faced by that swarm of reporters, specifically because House Republicans had just succeeded in blocking an attempt to expel him from Congress. For obvious reasons, for anyone who's been paying attention, but in case you haven't, I'll tell you why. So the freshman congressman has been charged with 13 counts of financial crimes, which include embezzling money from his campaign, falsely receiving unemployment funds, and also lying to Congress about his finances. Now, California Democratic Representative Robert Garcia introduced a resolution back in February to expel Santos. He sought to force a vote on that resolution using a process that left 3 options for the Republican Party, and that includes having a vote on the resolution, a move to table, or a referral to committee. Kevin McCarthy, the Republican House Speaker, and the House GOP chose the 3rd option to essentially refer this to committee. And Representative Dan Goldman, a New York Democrat, says this, quote, "It is simply an effort for the Republicans to avoid having to take an up or down vote on whether or not George Santos belongs here." The House voted along party lines, 221 to 204, to refer the matter to the House Ethics Committee, with Santos himself joining his GOP colleagues in voting to do so. I should also note that 7 Democrats voted present, including several who happened to be on the House Ethics panel, hoping to dispel any concerns of conflicts of interest. I just love how Democrats are like, we must play by the rules, and we don't want to give the impression that there's a conflict of interest. It's like, do you guys not understand who your opponents are? What's going on here?
Well, we know what's going on with Democrats. Pathetic weakness, other than Jamal Bowman, who I'm really enjoying these days. I'm gonna come back to Jamal in a second. But on the issue of the Ethics Committee, I understand the trick here. Number one, they referred it to the Ethics Committee. It was already in the Ethics Committee.
I know.
So they double referred it? Is that the big action that they took? So that's hilarious, that's a joke, that's a literal joke, okay? Yep. And then the second thing that I'm not sure a lot of people know is that once the Department of Justice indicts someone, the Ethics Committee historically has to stop working on their investigation. So they referred it to a committee that cannot continue the investigation and that was already looking into it. So that is definitively saying, no, we are not going to expel him.
What I want to understand is why the Republican Party is against law and order. Why does the Republican Party want to protect individuals who embezzle money? Why? Why do they love criminals so much?
By the way, why can't a Democratic congressperson do that speech?
I know.
I mean, it's so easy. Guys, like, look at the 3 facts we just gave you. So easy saying, hey, look, the ethics committee can't investigate because the Department of Justice is already investigating. And why do you guys want to protect a criminal? I mean, now you protected Trump, now you're protecting him. You protect all the people that Donald Trump gave pardons to, who are almost all white collar criminals. Then you wanted to defund the IRS because they look into tax cheats, who happen to coincidentally be your donors, okay? So why do you hate law and order so much? Why do you want to defund the police? Why do you want to defund the FBI, defund the IRS, defund everyone who would be a check on incredibly wealthy people and powerful people? Now, these are super easy points to make, but Democrats can't quite figure it out, etc. So now back to Jamal Bowman, because there are a couple of Democrats who apparently are willing to fight. So go get him, Jamal. He used to be a principal, and then he won this seat after that. He started his own school, which was received all these awards in New York. He's an amazing guy to begin with. I like now that the principal is yelling in the hallways at these children, okay? And he's like, hey, George, you're in detention, go home, okay? But you should be expelled. And the principal is absolutely right. And why is Jamal Bowman like basically getting into these shouting matches all throughout the hallways of Congress, right outside of Congress? Because there's no actual debates in Congress.
1000%. I mean, look, the theater that we all see every time they have a hearing, it's nonsense, right? They don't actually intend to do anything. But I think if you engage in the kind of theater that we're seeing from Jamal Bowman, I mean, there's a gaggle of reporters there. Reporters love theater, they love that kind of drama. And it kind of forces them to cover the story and shed light on Republicans providing cover for a potential, and I only say potential because he hasn't been convicted yet, but a potential criminal.
Yeah, so when you do a polite speech in Congress about, I do declare George Santos has prevaricated, nobody covers it. You go outside where there's all the reporters and you go, hey, why don't you get the hell out of Congress already, you crook? Everybody covers it. So Jamal's not only being effective and using basically the one avenue that's left to fight back against Republicans, but he's also being smart and strategic about how to do it, right? So look, what are they doing inside Congress? Fake hearings about fake informants. They're not doing any of the people's business. The only other thing they're doing is a fake fight over the debt ceiling so they could cut from the average American. So that's why Bowman's having to do it outside of Congress, and I say more power to him.
Now, Santos was asked, well, if the ethics committee finds that you engaged in wrongdoing, that you should resign, would you be willing to do it? Apparently he said, of course, but like, can you really believe anything that George Santos says? And he had already committed, and he's on the record saying that he plans to run for re-election. Let's see if the people in his district would be willing to elect him again. I mean,
no, there's no chance. If you don't know why the Republicans aren't kicking him out, yes, they don't mind criminals at all, that's true, but also because they only have a 4-seat majority in the House, and that's a swing district. They're afraid of losing that district because of all the damage that Santos has done. Then they'd be down to 3 votes, and that would be inside this term, so they're very worried about that. Plus, McCarthy made him a promise that if he backed him during the speaker votes, that he would leave him alone, and so that's the backdoor deal that McCarthy made that everybody knows about.
Now, in our members only bonus episode today, a discussion that I want to have, only because I want to rile Cenk up, is how reporters failed to catch all of this gross history that Santos has, like not a single report about it prior to the election, which allowed for him to get elected as a United States member of the House. But when it came to you running for Congress, they were willing to make things up, all right? I mean, it is interesting how they treated Santos versus Cenk. We should talk about that in our members only bonus episode. You can become a member if you're not one by going to tyt.com/join. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can join by clicking the join button below.
Yep, and I will have strong opinions on that.
Yeah. All right, for now though, why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, Joe Scarborough says some quiet things out loud, including, the kind of relationship he has with Joe Biden. That and more coming up.
I have not done my job since I've gotten here. I can chew and walk gum at the same time.
You look like a fool. Yes. Yes.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, but also Maku Pawa, P. Holmes, CG, Daniel De La O, and Gabby Mathis and Jonathan Sismic use the join button to upgrade to TYT Premium, which you can all do through the same button as well. And Gabby and Jonathan and all the new members, we love you. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. We do this show together. And thank you for keeping our voice strong. Anna, you wanted to say one thing.
Yes, I do want to say something. So, former Vice President Mike Pence just went on Fox News, and while speaking to Larry Kudlow, he decided to take some jabs at Donald Trump, which is shocking because even after the Capitol riots, Pence was super soft on Trump, didn't want to attack him too viciously. Well, he did take some jabs at Trump for not targeting Medicare and Social Security. Oh God, I'm so excited to watch you run and fail for president of the United States. Do you not get it? He doesn't get that that's the third rail.
No, I know, but so he's in a pickle because even Republican voters love Social Security and Medicare and will take your head off, proverbially, rhetorically, but they're Republican voters, good God, they wanted to hang Mike Pence earlier. So they do not want you to cut those things. But I think the reason Pence is saying that is he's basically going on TV and saying, donors, I'll do anything for you, please send money. And that's why he's saying what he's saying.
Yeah, so Kudlow asks him, you noted that Trump was a big spender. You disagree with him on entitlements. You say we've got to tackle Medicare. We're gonna have to tackle Social Security. What were you getting at? No, I think, Kudlow, put the drink down. I think it's pretty clear. He wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. What are you talking about?
Where's the hard part?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Anyway, so Pence is completely oblivious to the fact that he wants to target spending on programs that are wildly popular, even among the Republican base.
Like over 3/4 of Republicans love those programs. That's the one thing, by the way, that's part of why we say don't underestimate Trump. Because he has that populist streak, whether he means it or not, he goes out there and he says, why would I protect Social Security and Medicare? And it's not just Democratic voters or independents, the Republican voters love that. All the other Republican knuckleheads are like, hey, donors, I'll cut it for you. And then they lose popularity.
And let me just read you Pence's exact statement, okay? Get a load of this. Look, our administration could have done a better job controlling domestic spending. I fully supported what we did in rebuilding our military after years of budget cutbacks. Come on.
That's saying defense contractors, please send money.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. I supported emergency relief during COVID for families and for businesses that propped up our economy. But between there, Larry, we could have done better. And most important of all, we could have begun a national debate for dealing with the real driver of our national debt, which is 70% of our federal budget, as you know, which is entitlements. And what he's referring to is Social Security and Medicare. Of course, no mention of the $2 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthy and to corporations, which was, of course, Trump's tax cuts for the rich. That's totally fine. Right, that wasn't in any way irresponsible because we gotta give the wealthy, we gotta give the corporations more cookies, even though their effective tax rate with all those loopholes, deductions and loopholes was so low already. And now it's even lower, which is why you have major corporations, some of the wealthiest corporations in this country paying nothing in federal taxes some years. Companies like Amazon, for instance.
Look, in Justice is Coming, my book that's coming out, I show you that over 80% of Americans think that we should tax big business more, that they have too much power. And about 59% of Americans say They just have too much money. I don't even know what that means. I don't even agree with that, right? But American people do not love big business, okay? So why do politicians constantly tell you how much they love big business? Remember what one of the things that Pence said that Anna just read you right in the middle is like, I remember during COVID relief, I sent all the money to big business. And remember, I love the 2 trillion tax cuts that went all to big business, okay? And I want to cut the entitlements that goes to the average American. I want to cut from the average American. Why would somebody be so stupid as to say that? Because they're not stupid. They're doing an ad for themselves on television to people watching CNBC, wealthy donors, and he's going on there and say, send me money. I will do anything for you.
Yeah, and by the way, these are programs that we have paid into. Social Security, Medicare, take a look at your check stub and you will see exactly how much money you have contributed during that pay period to Social Security and Medicare.
One more quick thing. The Republicans derisively call it entitlements as if you're a bum asking for an entitlement.
They're so disgusting.
But do you know why they were called entitlements in the first place? Because since they took it out of your paycheck, you are entitled to get it back.
Damn right.
But the Republicans use that to smear the average American to help the rich.
All right, let's move on. We're not winning with left-leaning media either, and here's a good example of it. During a discussion over President Joe Biden, Morning Joe hosts Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski talked about like, no, he's not old. He's not too old. What are you guys talking about? Joe Biden is doing real well. He's real strong. Mika Brzezinski goes on and on about his crazy busy schedule and how he's able to handle it like a real man. I mean, us normal people wouldn't be able to handle that incredibly difficult and busy schedule. But what I particularly found interesting was Joe Scarborough's conversation on the aptly named podcast Hacks on Tap, where he discusses the president hitting him up late at night for late night debates. Let's watch.
I know that Joe Biden is still cogent because I've said a few things about him on my show, and I've read a couple of op-eds, and he'll wake me up when I'm asleep at 8:30 at night, because Meek and I, of course, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'll just go, hello, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And about an hour later, he will aggressively and very effectively give me point by point by point about how my op-ed was flawed.
So in an effort to defend Joe Biden and make the case that he is not too old to run for re-election, Joe Scarborough, I don't know if it was accidentally, I don't know if he just doesn't think it's that big of a deal, admits to the American people that the President of the United States calls him at 8:30 at night to talk to him, to discuss policy with him, which if I recall correctly, Libs had a huge problem with that, no? When it came to, Fox News hosts doing the same with Donald Trump. And if you don't remember, I can remind you of that. Let's watch.
Guess who was on the campaign trail with Trump just a few hours ago? Sean Hannity and Jeanine Pirro of Fox News.
Trump doesn't just rely on Sean Hannity's show for input, but every single night after it goes off the air, the two talk by phone right before bed.
If this had happened under a different administration and it was a different network, what would Republicans be doing? We would be having a fit. It's about the bias in the media and how this is so inappropriate and everyone's in bed with everybody else and how can we expect any kind of fair coverage? But now we have an entire major news network that has become a state propaganda for this administration. It's completely inappropriate.
How do they consider themselves a news network when they are actively
I feel bad
involved
for the
and
journalists,
engaged
the real reporters.
What they will tell you is that their evening people are opinion.
Right.
Their afternoon people are more Fox News. Most people know, but that's the distinction.
They think that Sean Hannity and all of the people at night are actually telling them the truth and have to abide by the rules of journalism, and they absolutely do not. They're opinion hosts, but the people who are watching that channel have no idea. There should be a bug if they want to do it up there that says these are opinions.
Don't you like the idea of them kind of chopping it up at night, like a couple of high school sophomores? And did my hair look good? How'd you like my closing comments tonight? And how do you like what I said about immigrants today? Destiny brought these guys together. Destiny brought them together. It was inevitable that they would be in each other's orbits to the extent that they are now.
Well, because the line, such as ever existed, Eric, between the conservative political structure and the corporate Fox News structure has completely dissolved.
I haven't seen any Republicans make a big deal about Joe Scarborough taking calls from President Biden at 8:30 at night. But I also haven't seen anyone on MSNBC or CNN make a big deal about it either.
Yeah, so look, I have an opinion that might surprise you on this in a second. But first, the obvious stuff. So all that crying they did, oh my God, can you believe it? How did he sign it, Trump? Now Scarborough said, oh yeah, I'm talking policy in the middle of the night with Biden all the time. Not a peep. Have you guys heard a single criticism from anyone in media? Like, we're old enough to remember those clips that were from like 2 seconds ago, okay? You all saw them with your own eyes. And you will see going forward, no one will say another word about Joe Scarborough and Biden talking to each other behind the scenes, okay? So I want to point out that hypocrisy, and I'll add one thing to that hypocrisy. Remember when everybody also lost it about Chris Cuomo talking to his brother? They're like, oh, this is outrageous, you can't do that. I can't believe that they were talking behind the scenes. Now Scarborough does it with Biden. They're like, oh, bravo, no problem at all. Because as long as you're on the right team, everything's good. And by the way, they didn't mind talking to Chris Cuomo, talking to Andrew Cuomo when Andrew Cuomo was popular. But when Andrew Cuomo was caught, then all of a sudden it became a problem, right? And so, because before Andrew Cuomo was part of the establishment. And if you're part of the establishment, regular rules don't apply to you. Okay.
Listen, if Joe Scarborough made that statement on MSNBC, where they're constantly providing cover for Biden and his flaws and all of that, then I'd have no problem with it. But I would venture to say that their audience is under the impression that they are doing fair analysis and fair reporting.
I know, that's the problem.
And that's the problem for me.
Yeah, so that's gonna get to my potential surprise. If you watch Young Turks enough, you know you wouldn't be surprised. But I actually don't think there's anything wrong with Joe Scarborough and Joe Biden talking off air. I don't think there's anything wrong with Hannity and Trump. And come on, you tell me Chris Cuomo wasn't gonna talk to his brother? Who are we kidding, right? So I'm not here to defend Cuomo or Hannity or Scarborough. 2 out of 3 of those guys I don't like at all, okay? But I don't think it's that big a deal as long as you are honest about it, okay? So like, let's say that Marianne Williamson wins and she's the president. She calls me up, hey Cenk, what do you think about this? What, am I gonna hang up on her? No, I'm gonna talk to her and I'm gonna give her my real opinion. But I'm not gonna hide it and I'm not gonna pretend that I don't have an opinion or a perspective. We're very clear about our perspective. So what drives me crazy about the CNNs of the world is they pretend to be outraged by others. Meanwhile, they slipped questions to Hillary Clinton, the questions they were gonna ask in a debate on CNN to Hillary Clinton in a debate against Bernie Sanders, right? And then they're like, can you believe how biased Fox News is being? But what they never admit to is their own corporate agenda.
And you meant News Nation, by the way, not, I think you said Newsmax.
Oh,
when you
well, when I promoted the Dan Abrams show earlier. Oh, I'm going to be on tonight. We're going to talk about Jamal Bowman yelling at Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm so sorry to News Nation. Yes, this will be at News Nation when and I'll be talking to Dan Abrams. And guys, I'm on Chris Cuomo's show all the time. It's not about that. I have a very well documented track record of being 100% against Andrew Cuomo, and not because of the latest scandals that just added on top of it, but Andrew Cuomo has been one of the most corrupt, conservative, corporatist Democrats of my lifetime. So I got no love for any of those guys in that regard, okay? But you have to be honest in your reporting. So I don't mind if they talk behind the scenes as long as they're clear about their perspective. But mainstream media hides their perspective, which is the status quo and corporate rule are awesome, and we're gonna pretend that's the objective position.
When we come back for the second hour of the show, we'll tell you about how Disney has found a way to retaliate against Ron DeSantis, and Donald Trump is definitely clowning DeSantis over it. Don't miss it, we've got that and more.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.